All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday. It is 3 o'clock, right? Eastern time. Back to our, still not quite used to being back to our normal time. I know we did a few weeks of kind of random times, but as I mentioned, when we're trying to connect with people all over the place, you kind of have to be accommodating to what people's schedules are. Luckily, it worked out this week. For those of you that don't know, I'm based in New York now, or the New York area now. Prior to that, I was working in Texas, in Austin, and in Houston, both cities that really just kind of took a hold on me. Being from the Southwest, I was always a little bit skeptical of Texas, but I really absolutely fell in love with the place. I didn't spend a ton of time in Dallas, which is where our guest this afternoon is joining us from, but they have been really kind of the guardians of agave spirit, of the conversation around agave spirits in that area, and have done just a really, really incredible job over the last few years. They have one of the most beloved mezcal bars in the country, definitely in the state. I, of course, have a personal soft spot for my old stomping grounds down in Houston, but I could not imagine some better stewards of what it is that we're trying to do at Vago, Tequila Ocho as well, and all the other really incredible brands that are putting out some really quality agave spirits. These guys do an incredible job of sharing their love for them and getting people excited about it and really educating them. And that bar is Las Almas Rotas. So this afternoon, I'm lucky enough to be joined by my buddy Shad down in Dallas. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, bud. Very glad to connect with you this afternoon. Hope things are going well down in Dallas for you, or at least as well as can be expected. I know you guys have not only been dealing with the kind of very flexible, shall we say, very dynamic situations surrounding openings of bars, but I know you guys have been dealing with that pain in the ass construction that's going on right outside your door.
Yeah, we were able to pivot pretty quickly to a drive-through program to help us stay in business. And then the city thought it was a great time to tear up basically the easement where the drive-through was. So, it's been a challenging time, as they say.
Well, I hope you guys have figured out some creative ways to do it. Just knowing you guys and the spirit that you guys have, I'm sure that you guys have found a way to not necessarily make it work, but I guess essentially just do the best possible job that you guys can. I know we've participated in some Zoom sessions. You guys were lucky enough to, or I guess we were all lucky enough to spend time with Judah. He's kind of in and out of availability from time to time based on whether or not he's in Mexico or in the US, but it was really great to get to hang out with you guys and Judah all at the same time, albeit digitally, but it was really great to see both your guys' faces at the same time. So that was really a blast. Thank you so much for inviting us on to do that. How have those been going, by the way?
We've slowed down doing them as we've been able to reopen. So we're not doing them on a weekly basis as we were before. I plan to continue to do them as people's availability arises. So it was really kind of integral to keeping us in business for those months when we were, pretty much shut down except for food service. So I'm super appreciative of y'all, of yourself and Judah coming on and being a part of that. And I think that they've been, really amazing for our customers to be able to have that really intimate forum with some of the top people in Mexican spirits. It's been an amazing program.
I do have a little surprise for you and for the people that are watching this afternoon. Part of our Samson and Surrey family, our good friend Chris Dempsey, who is now repping our whole portfolio down in Texas. He used to work for you over at Almas Rotas, if I'm not mistaken, and I have him on this afternoon to be a guest host with us. Chris, are you there, bud?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
There he is. Hey, man, how's it going?
Man, it's good. I'm just trying to drive to a safe spot, so I'm not. If I look like I'm not paying attention, I am. It's just the road.
Oh wow! All right, you are live and doing it right now, huh, bud?
Yeah, man. I was on my way to Las Almas Rotas, and then remembered it's only 2 o'clock. So.
To knock on the back door, bud.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's good seeing you, Chad.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
So Chris usually handles our Whiskey Wednesday sessions and does a really great job of repping the whole portfolio. But Chris, like Shad, like myself, is a huge, just absolute fanatic for Agave spirits. When I heard that we were hiring Chris on, I was a little nervous that my role would not necessarily be necessary. Would not exactly be necessary anymore with Chris's deep knowledge. So we're really stoked to have him on the team. So hopefully those of you guys watching will learn a little bit this afternoon about ourselves personally, and about Agave spirits as well. Shad, on that note, I'd like to backtrack a little bit and just, we share a common bond being from the same area, the Sonoran Desert, a very hard place to be from. I often hear people explain it as an environment that is pretty much trying to kill you nonstop, essentially. Could you give us a little bit of a background? Kind of what was it like for you growing up there? How did you end up being in Dallas, and eventually how did you end up opening up Las Almas Rotas?
Well, I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, as you just alluded to, and it was really interesting because being in the Sonoran Desert, you're surrounded by agave. And to me, they're always kind of there in my life. I mean, we had ornamentals in our yard, and I never really thought too much about them. But the Sonoran Desert's, as you say, it is a very harsh environment, but it's also a very unique environment. And I'm really so happy today to see, this kind of celebration of regionality that's happening there. There's some really cool people doing some great stuff. I mean, El Cristo down in Tucson, and Exo Roast down in Tucson. I think you had Doug on here before, is doing some amazing work. I love to see the Bacanores that are coming up. But anyway, so I grew up in the antiques business in Arizona. And we moved to Austin, Texas, my wife and I, for her work in about 2006. And then after we couldn't handle living there anymore, we ended up moving up to Dallas because I had I was selling antiques at the time. I was selling at a place up here, and we had, a group of folks that we already knew. So after we moved up to the Dallas area, I've always been in love with Mexico. I fell in love with Mexico first through her folk arts. Backtracking a little bit, as I said, I grew up in the antiques business. I had a store in the Phoenix area called Saints and Sinners, and we used to sell Mexican folk arts and antiques there. This was about 98 to 2000, that time frame. And, back then there really wasn't a whole lot of mezcal available on the markets in the United States. So I was always kind of a tequila drinker at that time. Fast forward to about 2009, 2008, I had my first sample of an artisanally made mezcal. And I remember the instant I sampled it, I said, this is like drinking a culture. I mean, the depth and complexity of it just brought me right back down to Mexico. And after that, we kind of went on a wormhole, to say the least. So we formed, we had a group of friends that was kind of interested in the spirit, and we all started meeting at each other's houses. Everybody would bring a bottle. It was kind of an inexpensive way to try a lot of different brands. And from then, a small group of us decided to basically open we'll call it a private tasting room, but that was the original Las Almas Rotas, and it's kind of developed from there.
What year was it that you all actually opened? It was a couple years after pastry, right?
We opened in 2017.
2017, yeah. So you guys are about 3 years now. I feel like you guys, I don't know if it surprised you guys at all, but it definitely surprised me, not because of the bar, but just it was so surprising to see a mezcal bar get so highly regarded in a city as big as Dallas is. And from my experience, and maybe this is my own ignorance for not having spent a ton of time there, but it seemed like it seemed like Austin, Houston, we're kind of pushing the energy a little bit as far as cocktails, interesting things to drink, natural wine being another example, compared to Dallas a little bit. So it caught me by surprise, and I was really just ecstatic to see how warm the reception has been for the Dallas market for you guys. Did that catch you at all by surprise, or did you guys just know that there was a hunger for agave spirits and the culture that it brings? Or was it a little bit of you guys just kind of holding your nose and jumping into the pool and hoping you guys weren't going to drown, so to speak?
It was totally that. I mean, we had no idea what the response would be from Dallas. None of us, myself, my wife Lee, and our partner Taylor, none of us come from the food and beverage industry. This is the first time I've ever worked in a restaurant or bar in my life, and that goes for all of us. Although Taylor did a little bit of bartending right before Art Belmont bartending. But it's totally a passion project. We opened it, we pooled our own money, did not get investors.
Wow.
We just wanted to do it our way. And, we've basically been stumbling through it the whole way, trying to learn the business and then also trying to operate a very niche bar. Dallas is very much a cocktail drinking town. So we didn't really know how, neat spirits were going to be received or drinking it neat. And, honestly, our flight program is what I'll point to as kind of the greatest tool, both for the customer to explore the category, in a relatively inexpensive way, rather than committing to, one pour for a larger price. But it's also great for our staff to then, understand what their taste preferences are and guide them from there.
Have you guys focused obviously I'm guessing a lot more on the agave spirits, but every time I go there, you guys have a really interesting cocktail program going on as well. Not overwrought, not overthought, and somewhat simple, but just at the same time, very creative, very well executed, and just all the drinks are really, really fantastic. Did you guys, I'm guessing that's a little bit more of you guys just being able to hire the right people, i.e. Chris, others, and just getting lucky with the bar staff? Or do you guys really active in the cocktail creation side of the bar? Or is that just kind of something that you guys leave to the bar managers, so to speak?
We leave that to the bar manager and how much of the staff that they really want to engage on that. To us, the cocktail program was basically an entryway, a very accessible way for people to enter the world of, agave spirits and Mexican spirits. Again, I'm not a bartender, I'm not a mixologist. Cocktails are not my thing. The original concept was going to be pretty much all neat pours and maybe a Paloma, margarita, just a couple of cocktails, if any. The space we ended up getting, though, was so large that, we knew we couldn't have kind of a traditional mezcaleria experience where it's more like a tasting room and, just kind of bar seating and stuff like that. So we knew it was going to be important to have cocktails as part of the program. Our only thing was we wanted them to honor the base spirit and basically highlight that. Now, everything in Las Almas is really kind of geared towards making the Mexican spirits the star of the show. You'll notice our serviceware is very simple. I didn't want any gimmicks as far as our cocktail program goes. There's nothing wrong with them. That's just not what we wanted to do. The decor is very sparse at Las Almas. The back bar is really kind of the star of the show.
That's interesting that you guys went with kind of a simplistic view of, not simplistic, but just a very streamlined, like you just said, right? Like the bar isn't overly decorated. The back bar is really the star of the show. Given what I'm assuming, I could only imagine you guys have still quite a collection of Mexican antiques, or have you pretty much gotten rid of all of that stuff?
No, it's still in the bar. A lot of it's on the very top shelf. You know, again, like I dealt and collected Mexican antiques and folk art for a long time. So we've got a great, you know, collection of Chango Mezcaleros, the old Oaxacan mezcal bottles. You know, I'm kind of picking up stuff from all over Mexico in my travels as I go to these mezcal producing regions. And then, you know, we have the spirits room, which is a smaller space in the back that was actually a recreation of the original Las Almas concept. And in there, there's, you know, some religious antiques that have been with me, you know, over 20 years, like our large statue of San Judas back there, the mummified monkey that everybody loves to talk about, you know, and it's kind of got a different vibe back there than the front bar has. So, you know, that stuff's still around, although we're running out of real estate on our back bar. So we're gonna have to figure out something else.
I forgot about the mummified monkey. It reminds me of the Thing out there on I-10, man, on the way out to New Mexico.
Very familiar with the Thing.
Chris, now that you're parked, I have a question. Now I can feel like I can actually talk to you. When you were working the bar, you know, did you find that people were really wanting to learn about Mexican spirits themselves, or was it more people that kind of, and this is also drawing on my own experience at Pastry War, that you guys had people just kind of wandering in because they thought it was just like your standard Mexican bar and really just kind of wanted to drink some cocktails and margaritas? Did you kind of have to cater to that when you were running the bar service to get people into the spirits, or did you find that people were going into Almas Rotas already kind of knowing what they were getting into?
So great question, because yes, on both of those fronts, right? You would always have the people coming in because they read about us or heard about us in a roundabout way, and they want to come in and try a margarita for happy hour. And what happens after that point is, you know, the fact that it was so small and such a very good staff at the time, and still is, you have the ability to kind of walk over to them, sit down with them, and start guiding them through these flights, which is literally, I think, over everything else that Shad and Taylor had put together. The flight system is really the driver of that bar, because you're able to try, you know, 3 to 5 different mezcals or sotals or whatever the case may be, you know, at a little pour of each, and not have to worry about, oh, I want to buy this $20 pour and not like it. So now you have the option of going in there with, you know, oh, I'm coming in here because I heard they have the best Mangonada or the best margarita, so I'm going to go in here and try that. And then you're staying for 3 hours talking to either your bartender or Shad or myself or the server or whoever, and you now have created these memories and this culture around, based around another culture. And also, I think the fact is that we are in Dallas and we have such a large younger Hispanic community that is really open to trying these new things, right? Whereas somewhere, you know, like my age, these cats really, you know, they're not necessarily trying all the new stuff, you know, but these younger people are. They want to, you know, I wouldn't say there's not brand loyalty, but they want to know what is out there. And I think that's definitely something that has driven the success of that bar is, you know, Shad and them offer every aspect of what you really want. You walk in and you know, you walk into the bar and immediately, if it's your first time in there, you're awestruck by how many bottles are back there, and it's all Mexican spirits. 2, you walk in there and you feel like you're at home. No matter what, you feel like you're at home. There could be a band playing and people dancing bachata or whatever, but you feel like you just walked in to your abuela's house and there's a you know, a party going on.
Oh, go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
To say, to Chris's point, you know, your average person's going to walk into Las Almas and they're not going to recognize any bar or bottle on the back bar, except for maybe some of the Del Maguey bottles that they might have seen. It's
Green
been
bottle, yeah.
so long. But, you know, going back to the cocktail program, that was really kind of a great way to, you know, familiarize people more with that. And, you know, we are really challenging people on that aspect of it. I don't know if I know we're one of the few bars in the world that only have Mexican spirits on our back bar. There's no bourbon back there. There's no vodka. You know, there's no other spirit category on that back bar, or spirit that's not produced in Mexico on our back bar. So, you know, we have those things. They're under the bar. They're not on the menu. You have to call for them. I mean, it's just basic hospitality, because somebody's, you know, might just want, you know, a bourbon or whatever they want. So, you know, again, it's really challenging for people to walk into a bar and look at a back bar and not recognize anything on it.
Chris, I want to get you back in really briefly for one specific question. For those less fortunate at home, what exactly is a mangonada?
So, man, this is probably one of the best frozen drinks you'll ever have. It's just mezcal, mango, lime. It's frozen, and then it's served with some chamoy, and it is just a phenomenal drink, just in general. You know, if you've ever had the privilege of going to a fruteria and you have a mangonada, it's basically that with mezcal. You can't really go wrong with it.
A lot of mezcal.
You know, yeah, it's, you know, even people, and what's funny about that drink is it's honestly an entry drink to mezcal if you've never had mezcal before, because you have that sweetness from the fruit that just kind of bridges that gap just enough where you hit that smokiness from the mezcal, and it just really kind of wakens your mind up to new things. And I think that's what all the cocktails on the menu do. That's the purpose that they serve, I feel. You know, because you do have those people that are used to drinking tequila. They don't know if they want mezcal, but now they can have a cocktail, or again, to go back to the flight, or a little flight, and be able to understand what it is that they like. And that's, you know, for me, that speaks worlds of a location, of a restaurant, a bar, you know, a family.
A very specific question. Do you guys have a specific chamoy that you guys use, or did you guys try making your own? Because I remember working at Pastry that I had to go, it was a chore to find the exact right chamoy that we were going to use for our frozens. And if they didn't have it at my regular spot, the other place was across Houston. So do you guys have a particular chamoy that you guys use? Did you make your own? I'm just curious as somebody who has worked with chamoy in a bar program before.
We certainly didn't make our own chamoy. As far as the brand goes, I don't know, Chris, do you remember what the brand was? I guess
it was just chamoy.
It was just chamoy. I remember one time we did do kind of a chamoy hack for a different drink where we just basically cooked down a bunch of plums and spices and vinegar and salt and just kind of mimicked our own. So for those of you that don't know, chamoy is, it's the liquid that is left over from sweet pickling fruit, if I'm not mistaken, usually plums, which is actually a Japanese culinary influence. And I wish I really knew, maybe either one of you guys know, the backstory of how chamoy kind of got involved into the culinaria of Mexico. I don't, but it is definitely something that has its origins in Japanese cuisine.
We use the brand Chilito. Actually, my wife just.
That's what it is, Chilito. Yeah, that's what it is.
If you guys haven't had chamoy, go try it. It's such an interesting, wonderful flavor. It's sweet, it's salty, it's sour. It's so incredibly delicious. And if you haven't before, I definitely encourage you to incorporate it into your bar programs, because it is a flavor profile that is fascinating and delicious, and was very much a part of my childhood, being a kid in Southern Arizona, kids in the borderlands, Texas, California, anywhere there's a large Mexican immigrant community. It's part of it's just part of growing up, you know, having chili dipped in chamoy and that being your candy that you get from the paletero. It's really, really a wonderful flavor profile. So if you haven't tried it, try it. If you haven't used it in your bar program, use it in your bar program for sure. Shad, I want to ask you a little bit more about your experience dealing in specifically Mexican folk art, because, you know, when I was working in Oaxaca, one of the tasks that I had as kind of my, you know, ongoing side jobs for Vago was whenever we were out and about in a village or something, try and find somebody who had some old black clay cántaros for us to use at the office. Very specifically, not used ones or not new ones, but ones that had been used and obviously had some years on them. And it was really difficult to find any place a lot of times, you know, even in Oaxaca City, you know, it's not like there's a ton of like antique shops or anything. It's usually, you know, maybe a shoe shop or a clothing shop that just happens to have a couple of jugs sitting around. You know, what was that like working in that space of Mexican folk art? Was it really just kind of going around and just finding random knickknacks here and there, or did you go on trips with very specific objects in mind that you were trying to procure? What was that like? It seems like it's a very hard way to make a living.
Yeah, well, so when my partner and I opened up Saints and Sinners, you know, we wanted to open up a Mexican folk art place, but we didn't really want to cater to the typical tourist goods that we found in most places, you know, the circle of friends and all that kind of stuff. So we would always go down and try to source really the most unique and strangest stuff we can find. So, you know, it was, a lot of it was, you know, paper mache stuff, clay bottle stuff, you know, stuff from the Linares family. But we also did a lot of religious antiques as well. And then, you know, a lot of stuff that kind of ties into Santeria. We carried a lot of that at Las Almas as well. So, you know, we weren't a botanica or anything like that, but we definitely had a lot of that stuff available there. We found out that the reason why you find tourist stuff everywhere is because that's what people want to buy. So, you know, the more unique stuff is definitely a more, you know, a rare collector that wants to purchase that sort of stuff. But we would go to the mercados in Mexico City and buy a lot of things there. Mercado Sonora, you know, we would go to La Laguna for antiques. And, you know, as I said, as I'm traveling now to these mezcal producing regions, you know, I'm always trying to find interesting stuff for the Las Almas collection there. And it could be, you know, contemporary artwork. You know, Oaxaca has such a wonderful plethora of, you know, especially like lino prints, you know, block printing and this tradition of that. You know, to me, that's what makes that city so special, is that it's such a living city with the Graphic Design Institute there and the wheat paste art everywhere. I'm always buying, you know, pieces from artists in Oaxaca City. But, you know, when I go out to these, whether they're palenques in Oaxaca or vienatas, you know, in Durango, I'm always trying to pick up not only folk arts, but also, you know, accoutrements for producing mezcal as well. The last piece I brought back was a mazo from Durango. It was a little handheld mazo. The guy would chop the piñas with an axe and then hand crush them, you know. So, you know, that stuff to me has a lot of resonance.
You were speaking earlier of the bar, of the back bar being completely sourced from Mexico. You know, I'm assuming that, you know, you guys are not necessarily incorporating other spirits sparingly. I think you guys are pretty enthusiastic about a lot of the spirits that are coming out of Mexico, whether it be aguardiente or whiskey that we see now, or even, I'm trying to think if there's any Mexican gins on the U.S. market right now. I can't, Gracias a Dios, right? There been, I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head. But have you guys found that as like a pretty easy thing to embrace, or did you guys were you guys originally thinking like, all right, we're going to be a mezcal and agave spirits program, or, you know, it seems like it's something that would be relatively easy to incorporate into your bar program, or did you kind of have to shift your tone a little bit? And was that another challenge to educate people on, or convince them of the level of quality, I guess, that is coming out of Mexico as far as those other spirits are concerned?
Well, as far as that goes, I think the proof is in the pudding. It's sampling the spirit, and I think we get converts very quickly. Whether it is like Abasolo whiskey that just came in the U.S. market from Ivan, very corn forward, very unique whiskey. What we love about, like the agave gin that you mentioned, or the Mexican whiskeys, or like Paranubis, the cane rum, is that it's great for basically taking traditional American cocktails and using Mexican ingredients in them. So that's always a good way to, kind of get converts over to those. Now we completely embrace it. I mean, again, our back bar is mostly agave, but we also have sotoles. We have some whiskeys that are, as you said, now coming into the country, and I think it's a very exciting time for all these categories and the stuff that's making its way here. And one of the great things about being located in Texas is that we have access to a lot of things. The distributorship here is really great about bringing stuff into the market, and a lot of them are based here out of Dallas as well. So we're kind of lucky in that, and I don't know that many other states kind of have access to as many marks as we do here in Texas.
I mean, yeah, that is very true, which is remarkable. I mean, obviously, you would naturally think about it given the proximity to Mexico, but the state system for liquor distribution makes things a little bit more complicated. So I think that is also a testament to the demand for these spirits that is growing in Mexico, and the level of interest that consumers have. The ability for you guys as bar operators, bar owners, managers, buyers, to educate the public and increase that demand, that the distributors are willing to order these products and deal with something else that they have to register with the state. So that's something that's really, really, I think, is, for me, remarkable to see that even given those extra logistics and headaches that people have, that it still remains one of the strongest markets for us at Vago, and I'm sure the same for other brands that are in the category, without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking about Arizona earlier. I'm not sure that they have kind of the same luck as far as distributorship goes. I've often wondered kind of why the agave scene there hasn't exploded as it has in other places. I mean, there are people there doing really good work, as I mentioned before in Tucson. But I would love to see more of it happening, and kind of a more of an embrace of that regionality with Bacanoras and Lechuguillas being sourced from Sonora.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely like to see that as well. I mean, I actually do see a little bit more. When I visit, I see a little bit more presence of different brands. I see one new brand every time I go, for sure. I don't go back home that often, but I do see them there, and I do see more brands in the marketplace than I do in other parts of the country. But that being said, outside of like Bacanora and what is available directly in, south of the border, whether it be Raicilla or other mezcales or other Mexican spirits, I don't see the awareness at the consumer level that I do in other parts of the country, without a doubt. And that is something that me and Doug were lamenting when I had him on a while back. And I don't really know what that is, because I feel like, really, just given the culture, given the environment, given the proximity, it blows me away that Southern Arizona doesn't have doesn't drink the most agave spirits per capita in the US, really.
Yeah. And, even here in Dallas, we knew from the get-go that we were going to have to make public education a priority in our bar program, whether it's through the flight program, you know, educating our staff, bringing in producers, you know, and brand people to do public education things. We knew that it was going to be our top priority to educate people. And I think maybe having like an all-encompassing program like ours that's just you know, hyper focused on this is a little different than maybe putting just a few bottles on the back bar of a regular bar.
Yeah.
You know, and they're available, but nobody really knows about them. You know, the customer may not know about them, and they'll just sit there and gather dust. So we wanted that to be, you know, kind of our top priority as an educational place as well as a place to get a great drink. You know.
Chris, I want to come back to you for a second, man, because I am curious, as somebody who has worked at this bar and has now worked at other places, travels as part of our work to see different places that really focus on agave spirits. And obviously Shad right now just mentioning, you know, bringing in people to educate about the brands, to build relationships with customers and help them establish the bar's relationship with their own consumers. You know, there are a lot of places that do those things, but I'm really curious, as somebody who worked at that bar, spent a lot of time there, and has now moved on and also sees other places around the state and around the country. What is it that you think kind of sets Almas apart and makes it a special place? Because there's, you know, the mezcal is very popular in different markets right now. Most major cities have at least one, if not two, mezcal-focused bars or mezcalerias. And, you know, I think you and I would both agree that Almas has a certain something about it. And I'm just really curious, in your perspective, what that really was and what you haven't been able to find anybody replicate, or not necessarily try to replicate, but just, you know, what gives the place its own personality and its own identity.
Yeah, so I think it's, you know, a fold of many different things, really. One, the education that the staff goes through to make sure that they have the knowledge and the ammunition to go into any conversation. You know, that's not necessarily what happens at every other bar around the country or the world, right? You may talk about training and education, but how much of that are you actually doing? Well, I can tell you, every single Wednesday, we had a training class, and you had to be there and you had to learn. And, you know, I kind of took a page out of Bobby's book, and you had to know and test on every single thing on the back bar. I think the fact that the energy and the drive and the passion that the owners have, and you see that trickle down through every single thing that goes on in that bar. Like I said before, you walk in there and there's just an energy. You know, it could be the ghost. It could just be the fact that, you know, people love being there. That's one of the things. I think, you know, the fact that it has the largest, you know, Mexican spirits back bar, and you walk in there and they're never wavering from their original thought, which to me, that speaks worlds over everything else. Whenever you own a restaurant or a bar and you have an idea and you step into that idea and then you start wavering because someone says, oh, well, you need X beer or you're never going to make it. So you start putting on all these big box things. That's not something you're going to find at Las Almas. And they're very true to that. There is not big box anywhere in that bar. It's all artisanal, well-made products that you can guarantee your staff that you're talking to is going to know every single thing about that brand or spirit. So I think for me, that was one of the things that drew me and drew the people into it. The energy, man, it's the energy. You can't even explain it, you know, but you've been there, you know it. You walk in there and it's just, you feel that energy. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, like I said, the ghost in the shell, and then, you know, the ownership and their passion.
You know, Shad, not to hopefully put you on the spot, or not just repeat what Chris kind of thinks. I'm curious if you think it's the same thing of just kind of, it's this indescribable identity that the bar has kind of cultivated for itself, or if there are certain things or certain kind of tones that you try and set in the bar that you don't see other people in other mezcal bars or just agave spirits bars around the country? Is there something that you guys think you're trying to do that's a little bit different? Or do you think that, maybe Almas Rotas is unique just because of the fact that Dallas is unique and the energy that the city and the community brings to that bar when they're there?
Yeah, I agree with everything Chris said. A lot of people have commented to me just on the energy of the bar itself. It's a very happy place. Everyone says it has a really good, good vibrations or whatever. I don't know. I think it's just kind of one of those, those things that you couldn't go out to create on purpose. I think it's something that just either it happens or it doesn't. I don't think you can find that in maybe like a corporate concept somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that people really sense that it's coming from the heart. At least I hope they do. It's very important to us to not only educate people, but also to not take the celebration out of the spirit. I mean, there's a fine line there. I mean, you definitely want people to appreciate what they're drinking. This is not a frat, tequila slamming thing. But you also have to recognize that it's a celebratory thing. It's something that you drink, at weddings, for parades. I mean, it's just, to take that out of the spirit, I think, does a huge disservice to it. So we have a lot of great times at Las Almas. We, as Chris mentioned, we have live music sometimes. One thing we try to always impart to the staff is to, try not to be pretentious about it. You know what I mean? Try to educate people, but not have pretense about it. You know what I mean? Do it in a way that really showcases how special this is. We get people in all the time. Again, I say we have a lot of brands that people don't recognize. And, maybe their favorite brand of tequila is not something that we would carry because of our, programs, as far as the way it's produced or something like that. Don't tell them that what they like is garbage. You know what I mean? You can do that in a way that will guide them to something else that, we really believe in and we really think is a well-produced spirit without putting them and their taste down,
Yeah.
And, that's something that's very important to me. And it's very important that our staff, really, stays true to that ethic.
Not to get too inside baseball, but, with one of the reasons that I wanted to incorporate owners and operators of some of my favorite bars around the country into these conversations was to maybe hopefully kind of help inspire some people that are young in their careers and never really thought about opening up a place or having a place further down the line. And without you putting all your cards out on the table, so to speak, are there any pointers or any particular points of advice that you would give people that might want to open a bar? Not even if it's not necessarily an agave spirits bar or a Mexican focused concept, but for you to operate something that is very much a passion project and focusing on a category that can oftentimes be very challenging to make profitable, that being agave spirits, while maintaining your ethics and your morals and your standards. What are some of the things that you would warn people are going to be some challenges, and how have you guys figured out how to maintain, maybe not an agave bar, I don't imagine would be the most profitable business, but there are other ways to be successful. In your eyes, what are some of the suggestions that you might, or some advice you might give to people, whether it be agave spirits or not, about how to do that, how to run a program that you're passionate about, that you believe in, and at the same time, is able to at least pay its own bills?
Yeah. To answer what you're
financing at that, I didn't realize that until you told me that today.
So what's that? I'm sorry.
Without having to raise capital from all these outside sources, I didn't even think about that until you told me that earlier today.
Yeah, I would say to follow your passion, because quite honestly, if you're doing it to make money, you're probably going to be sorely disappointed. You know, food and beverage is a tough market any way you look at it. You know, we're doing it because we believe in it, and you know, we love what we're doing. The payoff for me has really been the wonderful people I've met, both in the industry and out of our customer base, and to see people really enjoying the room, and to see them being passionate about this beautiful, what I consider a cultural treasure of Mexico. I would always say that my greatest success would be to inspire someone to travel to Mexico, to have these experiences themselves, you know, because I mean, no matter how many books you read about it, no matter how, you know, how many blogs you read about it, there's something about experiencing mezcal, you know, in situ, in its cultural context, that really highlight what makes it a beautiful spirit. And as I mentioned before, you know, truly a cultural treasure of Mexico. So I always say that if I can inspire someone to travel down there and have that experience for themselves, that's really kind of what I would call my greatest success. You know, I'm not the most sophisticated person in the food and beverage industry. If I was, I probably wouldn't be doing this. You know, I would say to maintain your independence, you know, have an ethics program and stick to it. You know, there are a lot of temptations. There are a lot of brands that do some untoward things. And, you know, it's really easy to fall victim to that sort of thing when you're really not making any money at it.
On the subject of travel, that kind of is a great, you mentioned traveling to all these different places. I'm really curious, just because I know that we've kind of obviously run in the same circles, been on some of the same trips, although, you know, albeit not at the same time. I'm just kind of curious, and given your prior travels through Mexico, what are some of your favorite towns or areas of Mexico to visit? Now, I won't ask you for your absolute favorite, but, you know, what are some of the 2 or 3 that you think are really, really special that people should really get to at some point?
Oh man, Michoacan, I think was spectacular. Both, you know, topography, the people, the foodways there. I really enjoyed that. You know, it's funny, I was just in Durango that for the first time last year. I really enjoyed my stay there in Durango. There's some wonderful producers there. It was so familiar yet different to me, you know, it being a desert state. Got to visit vinatas all throughout it. I really enjoyed that. You know, it's funny. It's like everywhere I go, I just kind of fall in love with it. So it's really hard to, you know, it's really hard to pick out even a few. But of course, Oaxaca is, you know, incredible. You know, again, all the foodways there, the spirits, the people, the artwork. Yeah, you know, I always say that Las Almas Rotas is really just kind of a love letter to Mexico, in its truest sense. And you know, I'm lucky in that I get to travel to these places and experience these things.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to go to Durango last year. I was in Michoacan right before things got crazy earlier this year. Michoacan, absolutely, absolutely incredible. Chris, same question to you, man. What are some of the favorite places that you've been to, or even some target places that are kind of top on your list to get to sooner rather than later whenever we can travel?
You know, so growing up, I did a lot of Chihuahua visits because that's kind of what my family was involved with. So, you know, I love northern Mexico. It's beautiful. I've actually never been south to Oaxaca. So, you know, like whenever I asked you a couple months ago, I'm like, next time you go, let me know. Because I'm definitely, you know, Durango, I want to go check out Durango, Michoacan. I mean, I just want to go out there and probably backpack around for about a year. And, you know, but, you know, kind of going back to the original question that you asked me earlier about what makes Las Almas unique. And I think Shad really hit it whenever he said Los Almas is a love letter to Mexico. That statement right there really kind of defines what him and Taylor and Lee and Las Almas really are about. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am right now. To be quite honest with you, for giving me the opportunity to kind of go in there and help drive what they were doing. And as much as I knew before I got there, I knew an immense amount more after I left. And it's just you get around Shad or Taylor or any of these cats in there, and you fall in love with everything about it. And you're like, oh, where did you go? Okay, well then I want to go to that place too, and I want to experience what you experienced. Although it's each person has their own experience, right? But I think people go there for that. They go there to see these people and to take in that essence of Mexico. And how, like Shad said, how do you pick one place that you want to go whenever each of them has its own uniqueness?
100%, man. And each place is unique, and they're so, not only are they unique, but they're so different from place to place, from region to region, even within a particular region. Like Chris, you mentioned wanting to go to Oaxaca, and obviously mezcal more predominantly produced in the southern part of the state. One of my favorite places is in the very northern part of the state, in the Mazateca, man. The land there, the culture there, the environment, just the topography is just awe-inspiring. It's incredible, these river canyons. And then at the complete, it's lush, it's green, there's water coming out of the mountains. And then on the complete flip side of that, not to be too much of a homer, but going back north to Sonora, but not necessarily like around where I'm from in Tucson, but for a little bit further west and kind of closer to the tip of the Gulf of Mexico there, kind of around the Colorado River Delta, San Carlos, that area. It's some of the most barren land that you could ever imagine, but some of the flora and the fauna that grow there. And I was lucky enough to have Ben Wilder from the Desert Laboratory on a few weeks ago, and he's done a lot of research there, spent a lot of time there with some of the indigenous groups that are there. And it is just a fascinating place that people have been able to, like we said at the top of the show, Shad, eke out an existence in this very, very hostile environment. I mean, where I'm from is really the absolute greenest part of that desert. And in the south, it is 10 times drier and more desolate. And yet there are these cultures, there's these ecosystems that have survived and had an incredible amount of diversity pop up because you have to adapt so diligently. I'm thinking of like on the road down to Puerto Peñasco, you drive through some of the volcanic fields there. And I was lucky enough to have Rodrigo on, and in that volcanic system is one of the largest caves for the endpoint of the bat migration coming up from southern Mexico, right? So it's just a really fascinating part of the world that is one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
Shad, I did want to mention one other thing because I think it's really, really cool. We only have about maybe 5 minutes left. I want to ask, one of the things that people are so into or that they find very exotic about mezcal is the idea of a Pechanga, right? And, I know that it was with a friend brand of ours, but you guys did a very unique bottling for Almas Rotas, right? That is very reminiscent of Texas, and I think gives you guys your own kind of sense of place, if you will. I agree with you, Chris, or I'm stoked that you've been to Chihuahua, because that is next on my list, is to go hit up Ricardo and spend some time there. Mata Ortiz, a really awesome village with its own pottery culture. Fascinating. Wanted to say that. But getting back to the bottling that you guys did, can you tell us a little bit about that, who you did it with and what that project was, the special bottling you guys did for Almas Rotas?
Sure, yeah. So Jaime from Gracias a Dios was up one time, and we were just kind of shooting the shit at Las Almas, and we kind of came up with this idea of producing a Pechanga. And we really wanted to do something that had, was distinctly Mexican, and then how we felt distinctly Texan. So we ended up smuggling down a smoked brisket. And, producing 86 liters. You know, this was like, not to get political, but right after Trump was elected or not too long after. And, you know, we really wanted to do this as a show of friendship between the people of Texas and the United States and the people of
awesome.
Mexico. So we took the brisket down there. I took a couple of the bar staff with me. We went to Tlacolula and sourced everything that went into the mosto. Yeah, we produced 86 liters of this Pechanga de brisket. So that was a really unique and fun project that we did with them. And, you know, it's something that was really special to my heart for sure.
How long? I'm just curious because I know we did a batch when I was running Pastry War. We did a batch with Vago, the Cobra y Barro, which was an ensemble of quiche, espadín, and tepestate, which was distilled in copper, hence cobre, and then we rested it in clay for about 3 months, which is the barro part of it. And that was about a 100-liter batch, and it took us a little bit of time to go through it. How quickly did you guys go through that? Was there any retail, or was it all sold through Almas Rotas?
There was a little bit of retail, but not very much, and we went through it pretty quickly. Luckily, it was a great price point for a Pechanga, and yeah, there was a lot of interest in it, and yeah, we went through it, I would say, fairly quickly. There's just a couple of bottles left in existence right now, so yeah,
wow, awesome.
it was a fun project, and
Yeah.
I'd love to do it again. We've been talking about doing it again, but you know, of course, COVID has derailed everything right now. But you know, real quick though, going back to Sonora, you know, and that's another state that I really am looking forward to exploring more than kind of the parts that I went to, and doing a really deep dive there as far as the state in Mexico, but also the region there. Like, you know, part of being an antique dealer is being kind of an amateur researcher, and I've been doing that with agave spirits as well. And to find these tantalizing mentions of distillation happening, you know, with the Tohono O'odham people in Arizona, I would love to see more research done on that. And I thought it was really cool about the researchers at U of A that found that Agave San Pedroensis, which was the cultivar from the Hohokams that only reproduced asexually. I thought that was a really cool project, and I just think that there's a lot to be mined there in that area. That's, you know, that people are doing right now, and I think it's really exciting research.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I need to go back and do a little bit kind of backtracking, because I've promised that we're going to post some of the things that we've talked about on the show, whether it be books to read, you know, academic studies that I've read through that we want to share. So thank you for reminding me, because that will give me a project to work on this weekend and get launched, hopefully next week or the week after. We only have a couple minutes left. Chris, I wanted to say thanks a lot, man, for jumping on kind of impromptu and joining us this afternoon. Any last parting words for Shad or myself from your car, I guess?
Yeah, no, I love y'all, man. Thank you for having me. Shad, you know I love you. I'll see you probably in a couple of days. So.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
Stay away from there.
Shad, thank you so much for joining me, man. You and I should talk sometime. Maybe we'll hit Doug up and we'll take a little trip through Sonora whenever we feel like it's okay to be traveling through Arizona. I'll probably be headed there probably in the early part of the year, so that might be a good opportunity depending on what things look like. But thank you so much for joining us, man. I really, really appreciate it. I miss you guys out in Dallas. Everybody in Texas that's watching, thank you guys so much for just supporting Vago, for supporting Shad and his program, the other programs that are working really hard to kind of just, you know, just be stewards of these spirits and this culture. And it really means a lot. I'm so lucky to have this outlet, to have people like Shad on. So yeah, thank you guys out there. And Shad, thank you, man. Thank you so much. And I hope you're doing well out there.
Really enjoy the opportunity, Cisco. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you tune in next week. We got a really awesome guest lined up. I'll be sure that we announce that this evening or tomorrow. And I will catch you guys next Thursday. If you're not subscribed to Samson Surrey TV on YouTube, hit the subscribe button to keep abreast of all the cool programming that we're doing. Everybody else, thank you so much. Y'all have a great afternoon and enjoy your weekend. See you guys next week.